So in the last one I finished up by talking about what we needed with regard to getting the wheels done for the XL. And I've given it some thought now over the last day or so. I'm thinking what I'd like to try to do before I start spending any amount of money, because for some reason a set of spokes is like 50 or 60 bucks. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to dismantle the wheels. I'm going to take the spokes, I'm going to clean them up. So I've got some double aught and quadruple aught, actually no, single aught and quadruple aught steel wool. What I plan on doing is I'll just take each spoke and I'll put the threaded end in far enough into a drill so that it's not being nipped onto it, so it's inside the chuck kind of thing, nip onto that, and I'll just spin them and see if I can't get them cleaned up with the steel wool. And if I can get them cleaned up that way, then what I'll do when I get them done is I'll just clear coat them so they don't rust. Then as for the rim, I'll have once the wheels apart, I'll give it the same kind of scuff with the double aught or the quadruple aught, see if we can't get a lot of that rust and stuff off. And then we can make a decision at that point if we want to go with that look or if we want to try to say paint those rims the same silver color that we use on the ATC project. So I'm going to go ahead and start breaking these wheels down, and we'll see if we can't get some of these spokes cleaned up. I'm curious as to whether or not this tube is still any good. Let me give it a quick check. Nope, no good. So now I'm really hoping that the nipples, the spoke nipples, have either like a Phillips head pattern or something in them, so that way I can get those out quickly. I'm probably going to want to shoot them with a bit of PB blast or something to help loosen them up a bit too before I start taking it apart. I'm going to pull that the rubber strap off and see what's on the go there. It's also going to get replaced. So for the ones it looks like I can get at, they look like they're a mix between a Phillips head and a Robinson. So if one won't work, the other may. And like I said, I'm gonna have to hit all of these with some cleaner, because you can see as I turn this over, some of these are just really, really rusted. So let's start getting this stuff cleaned up. I'm gonna give them a quick buzz through with the wire wheel, and then we'll go ahead and hit them with some PB blasters so we can get them. Okay, let's give that 5 minutes, see if we can get some of them spokes off. So while we're waiting for the PB blaster to take effect, I'm going to give the shock parts that we cleaned up and painted the other day a couple light coats of clear coat as starters, and then while we wait for the other wheel, we'll go ahead and get them with a thicker coat. That'll be the final coat then. So I'll do 2 or 3 light coats this side, and then when that dries, I'll probably hit them with the heat gun for a bit, and we can flip them over, and we'll hit the other side as well. So let's get going. Should we go for coat 1? Spoke party, here we go. These next couple are the ones that are right next to where the valve stem was, and I get a funny feeling they're going to be pretty rusty. I'm probably going to give them a quick shot with the impact, just the handheld impact driver, just to see if I can't get them to give me an initial twist. And I think it just mangled up the nipple, so we're going to try from the other side with vice grips or something. Either way, it's going to be a lot more of that, so I'm going to go ahead and get those last couple out, get the ones that are stuck out, and then we'll have a look at the spokes and see what kind of cleaning up we can do with them with some steel wool. Just so you can see what I'm doing, get the ones that are kind of stuck out. I'm just clipping my small vice strips onto the nipple here. Then I'm grabbing the spoke here with the other vice grip so it doesn't twist too much. So I clamp that on there. Let's twist it off. Or try to twist it off anyways. And that's broke off. So after all that, we're only down one spoke. This one twisted off. I gripped on here the vice grips, and I gripped the spoke with the other set of vice grips I had. When I twisted it, it just came off. So down the spoke, not a big deal. We can order one more. I'm going to go ahead and try to give some of these spokes clean up now. And if that doesn't work out the way I hope it's going to work out, then we're just going to end up ordering new spokes anyways. So anyways, let's give it a go. So the first thing I want to try to do with these spokes for cleanup is I've got it mounted in my drill. Go ahead and flick on my grinder, get the drill going counter to the direction of the wire wheel on the grinder, and then we'll see if they clean up at all. So that does clean the spokes up pretty good, but you can see on the end here, it's still got the nickel plating. We come down the shaft here, It looks shiny because the light is there, but it's pretty dull. If I turn it that way, so you can compare the top up here to this. So I'm going to try a bit of steel wool, see if we can polish that at all. And if not, then we're probably looking at spending lots of money on spokes. So I went ahead and put the spoke through the wire wheel, and then I kept it on the drill. And what I did was I just put a bit of Coke on the tin foil and spun it through. And as you can see, it looks pretty good. But the thing is, I mean, comparing it to one of the other rusty ones, because this was about that rusty, you can see the difference. Like, it looks really good, but the thing is, you can see up here toward the top, the camera will focus, that nice shiny nickel plating that's going to keep that part from corroding. From here to here, this is all bare steel now. And the first time a bit of water gets on that and then it just sits for, you know, a day or two, it's going to start to rust. So I can spend, you know, that one spoke took me, let's say, a minute by the time I cleaned it up on the wire wheel, then hit it with some tin foil. I can spend, say there's 40 spokes, so I can spend 40 minutes doing that to all the spokes. Then I need to come up with a way to seal them so they aren't going to rust. Then I'm into an hour. I'm starting to look at the pros and cons of doing that versus just ordering new spokes at this point, because ordering the spokes and my time restoring these spokes is about equivalent. So I'm going to do a couple more just to have a look and see how I feel about it, and then we'll go from there. While we're trying to think on what we want to do, let's give this up another quick coat of the old clear coat. Probably call that good for that side. This will probably dry overnight, and then tomorrow we'll flip them over, hit them with another coat of our clear again. Okay, let's try this with another one, just see how we feel about it. So I'll just quickly pull you out of the tripod here for a moment. So these are our results. This is before. These two are after. And once again, if I'm going to put the effort in to rebuild a set of wheels, I think we're going to go ahead and order some new spokes. The front one cleaned up pretty decent when I started cleaning it up. So we have a look at the rim. I mean, it's not horrible. You could take it and you could use it for sure. But the one thing I realized immediately is that if I use these wheels on this bike, I'd have to put new spokes in it anyways. But then I'm still looking at stuff that's in this kind of condition. I know it's in this kind of condition, and as well there's a couple spots on one of the rims where the edge is pretty, well, it's gone down through the chrome into the steel and it's a bit rusty. So I went ahead and I ordered 2 new aluminum rims and all new spokes, and those should get here in a couple weeks time. So while we wait for those, what I plan on doing today is, since I put one of my shocks back together, the one that was painted the last time, I'm going to go ahead and throw the old shock together as well. I'm going to go ahead and get the swing arm mounted to the frame. Going to put the shocks on the rear. Probably put the forks and the triple tree on the front. And then I'll look at probably cleaning up our hubs. Likely going to sandblast these once we get the inside degreased and everything cleaned up. So let's get to it. I'd really like to wait until my other shock got here. You see this one's done. It's looking really good. This one is the junk one. But in the interest of moving forward, We're waiting on wheels as well. I'm just going to go ahead and assemble this shock here. Then we'll go ahead and we'll have a look at putting the swing arm on the frame and getting our shocks mounted up. So, let's get it put together. So here in my box, I filled this with these parts 8+ years ago now. So I've got the rubber bushings and the pin that go through the swing arm of the frame, hold the swing arm in, as well as the inside piece. Now I'll look up the torque spec for that, but you can see now our swing arm is attached to our frame. So I'm going to take one quick look to see what the spec is for that, and we'll torque that up. Okay, so one thing I just found out when I'm reading this is supposed to get Loctite, so I've got some medium strength thread locker here. So I'll go ahead and flip the bike around, I'll get the bolt or the nut off, get some thread locker on there, and then we'll go ahead, torque out the spec. I think the spec is around 50 foot-pounds, what I read online. A couple of the XL forms and stuff. And then we'll look at getting some shocks attached. So let's get it twisted around. So we'll get our nut off. Get our thread locker on. Get a little too much, just take a dab of that off. Okay. We'll put on our nut again. So is that. Go ahead and get the torque wrench down. Looks like it might be about 17 mil, so I'm going to go ahead and grab the right socket for that, and we'll get this torque down. There we go, that's 50. So yeah, I like the way that feels good to me. I'm going to get the grease going on it now. We'll just give it a couple pumps and we'll look at getting our shocks attached. Okay, let's get the grease going on that nipple and give it a few shots of grease. There we go. Okay, it's getting tight there now. We should be good. Give that a quick wipe off. Probably going to want to take that out again and put this side in first, but we'll give it a quick go and see if we can get it out. Yeah, we can get it out. It's not big. Okay, so in our other box, here we go. We've got our washers and our flanged nuts that hold the upper part of the shock onto the frame. So, moving along, we'll give this hardware a quick clean with some fluid, some brake cleaner, and we'll go ahead and get both shocks mounted up to the bike. So at this point, I'm ready to put this shock on permanently. So what I'm going to do is I went ahead and I cleaned up the hardware. I'm going to put a bit of thread lock on this and tighten it up. The other one I'm not going to bother putting thread lock around because it has to come off again anyways. That's the bottom one. Oh yeah, it's coming right out. I'm so happy that I didn't hit the frame. So now in preparation for pressing those bearing races in, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a bit of light, well, I'll put a bit of grease on the inside of the where the races sit, and then we'll give the races a little while longer in the freezer, and then we'll come out and press them in. Quick look and make sure we're seated all the way down, up against the seat here. Yep, so that looks good. It's the top one. So we'll go ahead and tilt the bike back and we'll go ahead and do the bottom one. So now that we're ready to get this bearing race onto the bottom part of the triple tree right here, I went ahead and put a bit of grease here, but what I'm going to do first actually is I'm going to clean this off really well with some brake cleaner, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put heat to it. So I want to heat this inner race up with a propane torch or something. I'll do it till it's nice and hot, and this should expand enough to help us slide down over this collar a lot easier than if you're here trying to bang it on. So I'm going to clean it up. We'll put some heat on it and we'll get it on. So there we go. Our bearing race is seated right up against the head of the triple tree now, or the foot of the triple tree. So I'll let that cool off for a bit. We'll get some grease on it, and we'll get the triple tree up inside the bike. So now we'll use this to draw the upper bearing down where it belongs, on the sleeve of the upper part of the post. And then our triple tree is good to go. That feels feels really nice. So now we'll grab the upper part of our triple tree. I'm content to call that. There's zero play there. There's just a little bit of resistance. So it's not too tight. I'm going to give a little tiny more. There we go. So yeah, no resistance. Or a little resistance. They're not a ton. Zero play. It doesn't rock or move. So we'll take our triple tree upper and drop it on. At this point we've got a small washer that goes here, and then finally our crown nut goes on. Now I'm not going to draw this too tight yet because I want to put the legs in first, and that'll ensure that we are lined up. When we get the legs in, we'll bolt them in, and then I'll go ahead and I'll tighten down the crown nut while holding onto the underside of this with the channel locks. Okay, so I've got my bag of hardware for my triple tree stuff emptied out up here. So I'm just going to make sure that I got the right bolts for the bottom, for the lowers. Here's our ones for our uppers. We've also got a few various cable guides and whatnot that go on with these. So for instance, this one goes on this side over here and is the guide for our speedo cable and or our brake cable. We also got this one here, which is where our choke goes. So this goes on here like this, and then our choke gets mounted here so we can pull up to open and close the choke or whatever. So we go ahead and get our bolts just started, and we'll put our fork legs in and get these tightened up. So now that our hardware is all mounted up, I'm going to go ahead and grab our forks. I'm going to tighten up just enough fat to hold it for now. So that's one side, and this is going to want to tip forward, so I'm going to have to push this back a bit so it brings, actually it should just bring up on the front of the frame anyway, so yeah, there we go. Let me make sure the camera angle's still good. Here we go. You see one fork leg is in. Now like I said, it's just in there very loosely right now. We'll go ahead and check what height we're supposed to be up at the top of the triple tree and stuff, and we'll make all those adjustments once we get the book out and have a look at the measurements. Once again, just loosely for now. I think you guys are looking. So here we go. Now we've got our triple tree on with our forks. Looking good. I think come into the light a bit. So yeah, what I'll do now is I'll check the manual, see what our clearance at the top is supposed to be. I'll get both of those set up properly. We'll tighten everything down, and then we'll have a look at our hubs. Okay, so according to our Bible, right here, see, install the fork tubes at the top. The fork tube belongs at the top surface of the upper fork bridge. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do now. So as you can see now, both of these are just a little proud. Go ahead and loosen off the bolts on the lower here. Back up a tiny bit. There we go. So I'll loosen off the bolts on the lower, drop these down so that it's flush, and then we'll go ahead and tighten everything up. So if we look across those level at the top, we'll see on that side we're flush, on this side we're just a bit proud. So I'll do the same thing with that side over there now, and we should be good. So now that those are set up, I'll go ahead and torque that stuff down to final spec, and we'll have a look at our hubs. So I know I mentioned I was going to finish up the forks and we we're going to have a look at the hubs. What I think what I want to do is I want to save the hubs, and I'll do, once the rims and spokes show up, I'll get the cleaning of those, the cleaning of the rear sprocket, the lace up with the new wheels, and then the install of tires and tubes and whatnot, and then we'll finally make this a roller. So this is where we got to today. We got our forks and our triple tree on, we got our swing arm and our rear suspension on. Once again, this shock over here, that back one there, comes off this week because we have a replacement coming. We're going to make it look like this one here. But as of right now, it's really way too nice out for me not to be going for a little ride on that. So, that being said, that's it for this time. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.